All right, so here's the first assignment. So the first assignment will be the first of many assignments that build on each other, and they deal with different things, right? They'll add new features, right? Or they'll focus on a particular technology. This first assignment deals with getting started implementing the faculty application. The application that the faculties would use to create and author new courses, new material, and so those are the features, right? We're going to focus on the faculty. It's also going to focus on just the basics, right? HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, a little bit of JavaScript, okay? And so the only thing you could do if you only just have HTML and CSS is build something static, okay? So what we're going to do is that we're going to build a prototype of what the application is going to look like from the faculty's point of view, and not all of it, right? Just some of the major pieces, right? And this is very common that after having met with clients, the development team creates a prototype to bring over to the clients so that the clients can give us a feedback on whether the navigation is okay, whether the layout is okay, and if they have any feedback so that we can make changes early on. So the features we're going to be focusing on is creating a homepage listing the courses that are available or that have been authored, the ability of registering for the application, logging in, profile, looking at your own personal profile, the course editor. I noticed that a lot of the points are there. And course editor being able to create a new course, being able to add modules and topics and different chapters to different parts to the course, and then adding any number of widgets such as video widgets or headings and paragraphs and HTML content for creating content. So a lot of is focused on course editor. So the learning objectives is to get you going on some of the basic stuff, creating web pages using HTML, styling them using CSS, making them responsive using Bootstrap, implementing a Java web server using Spring Boot, Java with Spring Boot, and understanding specifications and as documented using the UML, Unified Modeling Language. Here's the schema, more or less, of what we're going to be building. We have a person base class here that captures all the common features of students and faculty. So username, first name, last name are here. Whereas faculty might add things such as office hours, whether they're tenured, and so on. So fields that are specific to the faculty. Students will capture things that are specific to the student. We'll have faculties can author any number of courses, but notice that it's an aggregate relationship as opposed to a composite, meaning if the faculty is gone, the course survives. Right? The faculty can also teach any number of sections. A course has many sections, and a faculty can teach any number of those sections. A student can enroll in a section. Right? We have an association class here that describes that relationship between a student and the section. The grade that they got, when were they enrolled, things like that. Then a course is made up of multiple pieces, right? A course has many modules. A module can have any number of chapters. A chapter can have any number of topics. And a topic can have any number of widgets. Okay? And typically this will be laid out as maybe a left-hand side where you have the modules, a top-hand side where you have the chapters and whatnot. And then the widgets are different content types that you can add to the page as the faculty authors the course. Here I only have 4 types of widgets, but we'll be adding more widgets as we go. Okay, here are some of the basic ones. A list widget, just ordered list, unordered list. Image widgets, you can drag and drop an image in there. Paragraphs, headings. Later on, we'll add a couple more, like links to slides, maybe a document, a Google document, maybe a spreadsheet, maybe just raw HTML where you can just type just HTML content. So that's the data model. Notice that there's an inheritance here, right? So the widget here has some of the base features of all widgets. You know, the background color, foreground color, you know, any the position, width, height, things like that. And then each one of these has some specific features for each one of the widgets. So here's some of the wireframes for that we're going to be implementing. So for instance, we'll look at each one of the pages that we're going to be building. So first we have the login. So each one of the requirements at the top, the features, you know, login, registration, profile, they're all listed here. The requirements for them. They're fairly fairly specific. And for each one of these wireframes, it's a proposal on what it should look like. It doesn't have to look this way, right? You're free to improvise a little bit on maybe the coloring and how to lay it out, right? But some of the things are required. For instance, notice that the page has two versions. It has a desktop version where you have the labels on the left-hand side and the form elements on the right-hand side, if you have enough space. But if it's too small, like for mobile, it needs to lay out this way, right? It needs to be responsive. Okay. With Bootstrap, this is trivial how to do this. Okay. You're free to use Bootstrap as much as you like. Bootstrap has tons and tons of little snippet of code that are already good to go. You're free to use any of those snippets. Actually, I encourage you to use as much as possible any snippet of code that they might already have. If you're wondering how to do something, first see if there's a solution already in Bootstrap. Don't try to invent it if it's already there. All right, that's fine. You don't have to give references to Bootstrap. I would expect that you'd be using that. Anyway, so feel free to perhaps change the styling and whatnot, but the feature should be there, right? It has to be responsive. Notice that there's a border all around. Okay, notice that there's nice white space between these. Okay, there's consistency. These are all lined up, right? Oh, these are all lined up. Okay, so there's consistency. There's good use of white space. Things are not touching, right? When you move them around, nothing overlaps on top of something else. So those are all requirements. Whatever you choose to do, okay, those are still requirements, right? That it has to have this, these nice best practices. Yes. Okay. So login. Also, again, this is all going to be static, right? So you're not if somebody submits a sign-in, they're not actually going to be signing in. Right? We'll implement that in later assignments, right? This is all going to be static. Although if I do click on click on the sign up, it will navigate to the registration page, right? That needs to be implemented, right? And if I click on the sign in, it should navigate to my profile page, even though the profile page will be static. So if I log in as Alice or Edward, it'll always go to Alice's profile or something. Yes. Eventually, it'll be dynamic, right? It'll go to a database, validate, blah blah blah, and come back with the relative information. We will be using a naming convention for the files and directory structures and whatnot. This is the naming convention that I'm proposing. If you are working or you know of another naming convention that you're familiar with, your place of work that is equivalent or better, then feel free to use that. Just let us know, right, that you're following other naming conventions. If you don't have any naming convention, then use mine. The one I'm proposing is that files should be if you look at a name of a file, immediately you should understand where does it fit in the overall architecture of the application. Okay, so here we have a feature. If it's login, registration, profile, what's the feature? What is it that its role in the application? And also this is the functional role. Okay, so in the application, whether it's providing some content. So this is an HTML template, This is a styling file, right? It's styling the template. Also, where in the architecture is this running on the client? Is it running on the server? Where is this running? On the browser? Is it running on the Java server, on the Node.js? Where is it running? And then HTML or CSS. Right, so immediately by the name of the file, immediately I can place this, and perhaps I can say who's responsible for this, how do I debug it, how do I execute it immediately from the naming convention. Again, if you have an alternative naming convention, please let us know. I do give snippets of code to get you started, so here's how you might get started using implementing the login template client. So we'll probably get half of the assignment perhaps done today, and then your assignment would be to complete it on your own and get it up and running on a remote server. Okay. I will intentionally leave certain things undone, right, for you to go on and complete it on your own. Also, we're going to be requiring that you follow good source control practices, right? So every time you're starting to work on a particular feature or debugging or fixing something, we're going to expect for you to be creating a separate branch where you implement that particular feature. Once you feel comfortable, you're going to then merge that feature branch into the master branch and then push. Everybody okay with Git? Is everybody comfortable with Git? Anybody not comfortable with Git? We're going to be using lots of Git in this class, right? In particular, when you get to work with your teams, it'll come in handy. When you get to work with your teams, you'll be expected to use, again, good practice in using Git, right? So if you're working on a particular feature, you're expected to create your own feature branch, yes, and then push that branch to Git and ask another fellow team member to review that code, right, and then take ownership of that code and then merge it into the master, right? And if you do this right, presumably there wouldn't be any case where one of you doesn't have the source code and somebody else does. Right? Everybody should always have everybody else's code. Right? So there wouldn't be any excuse of saying, oh, that part is implemented in somebody else's laptop. Right? I don't have that part. So there's no excuse. All right? Everybody should always have everybody's code. All right? Also, if there's a catastrophe and your laptop dies, there shouldn't ever be an excuse that, oh, I lost my work, right? That should never happen, okay? So make sure that at all time your source is in source control, right? And that you should be able to reproduce your environment at a moment's notice, right? Anywhere, okay? And also the fact that other people are reviewing your source code and they are merging it into master. Presumably, they're accepting the responsibility for that source. So again, there shouldn't be any reason why I might ask something to one team member, and that says, well, no, I didn't implement that part. I don't know that part. Somebody else knows. Okay. So again, so there shouldn't be any. That should not happen, right? Because you are all reviewing everybody's code, right? You all take ownership of the project, okay? So here's a reminder, yes, that as you're working on the login page, to commit, to push, to put it in a branch, and there's several commits throughout, several reminders throughout the assignment, but then we won't remind you anymore, right? It's just going to be expected of you to follow good GitHub practice, Git source control practices. All right, so that's the login page. The sign up, the user sign up, the registration page, it'll look very, very similar to the login page. The only difference is that perhaps we'll have a verify password. That's it. So if you've done the login page, you can very easily almost copy and paste and have the registration page all done. We'll have that done today, perhaps. So here's a snippet to get you going. Again, reminding you to commit your work. The profile requirements, it's just an extended version of the register page. You have the username, phone, email, role, date of birth. The only difference here is that the role is a dropdown. The Alice is a read-only. Email is an email type. What else we have here? The date is a date type. And the cool thing is that this works fine here in the desktop, but also on your mobile phone, right? If you use the correct type, right, it will work nicely if you visit your page on your mobile. If you click on the date, it'll bring up the date keyboard, right? Or if you click on an email, it'll bring up the email keyboard, right, and so on. As opposed to just if you use a text, right? So use correct data types, good data types, so that you have a good experience. It's also responsive. And just a reminder that just some details on using the correct type, right? The correct implementation. This over here, there's a message that would pop up if this were dynamic, but we don't have jQuery, JavaScript in this case. So if you just provide it here, hard-coded, and leave it there, right, next week we'll make it dynamic, right? But if you could leave it there, yes.
So in the previous one there was verified password. There is no JavaScript there also.
No Java. I mean, if you're free to play around with that. It's just that it's not required for this assignment. Okay, but yeah, if you want to start playing around with it, sure. Okay. Right, naming conventions, whatnot. Okay, so the home page. So the home page is gonna look very similar to Google Docs. Obviously, this is not how it should look like. The styling, again, you're free to change the styling, but nevertheless, the functionality should be as follows. It should give a sidebar that collapses and shows additional information, sometimes referred to as a sandwich. It has a field where you can enter the name of a new course that you can add. It has buttons that allow you to create that course, and that course then is added to the list of existing courses. Here we have a table kind of view of the list of courses, where we have headings, the title, owned by, last time it was modified. It has a drop down here to sort it in different ways. It has also here where you can toggle between a table view and a grid view, right? So you need to implement the table view and also the grid view, and so this would allow you to toggle to go between the two, right? From a table view to a grid view. Obviously, the sorting doesn't do anything for now. What else? Also notice that it's grouped by different criteria. Grouped by dates, right? Depending when it was created, it'll group by the latest one within today, yesterday, previous 7 days, and whatnot. Okay. Also, this one, this button here is floating, right? And it's fixed so that if you move, if you rearrange, if you resize the window, this is always stuck at the bottom right. Okay. Also, the header at the top is stuck at the top. Right, so if you scroll the rest of the page, the header is stuck at the top. Okay. What else? When you click on this, additional menu items show up. What else? Yeah, that's it. Right, it has a mobile version of this. If it's too small. Right, notice that this is still at the bottom right, and notice that most of the columns are gone. Right, I'm left only with the first column. Right? So it's responsive. Right, it removes all the other columns. I'm left only with this column over here. I still have the menu at the top, the input field, and the button. But I don't have any of the sorting. I don't have any of that. That's going to hide itself under the sandwich. All right, so if I double click or if I click on any one of these, right, it navigates to the editor that allows me to edit that particular course. right? That would go something like this. So here's a course editor. Again, it doesn't have to look like this. You can choose your own theme. You can move a couple things around. But the functionality should be the same, right? The functionality being that if I click on X here or maybe an arrow, I can go back to the list of courses, right? And so I can go back and forth between the list of courses or the editor. Also, it has the title of the course that I'm currently editing. It has on the left-hand side the modules that make up the course, right? And you can remove them, right? You can grab them and move them around, so you can change the order of the. Well, that we'll do next week with jQuery, or if you want to get started on that, it's pretty cool. You can move them around and change the order of these. If I click on any one of these, it becomes highlighted. What else? Here you can't see, but there's an input field here. There's an input field here where you can type the name of a new module, click on plus, and it adds a new module down below. Some students prefer to have this at the top. That's fine. Right, if you prefer at the top, if you like that better, that's fine. Eventually, if you click on the different modules, over here you get different chapters, right, in the module. Right, so at the top is kind of like tabs, right, different tabs that get highlighted. And so if you click on a module, the tabs change. If you click on another module, the tabs change. If you click on different tab, then you have different, these are pills here, right? These are pills of different topics. Notice that they all have a plus at the end. See that? So the plus allows you to add a new chapter, add a new topic. Okay. So this is so you can navigate through a very hierarchical content, right? Different hierarchical content. Some folks would prefer to click on the plus and maybe a pop-up comes up and you can type the name of the topic. That's fine. I don't particularly like dialogues. But if you prefer to do it in a dialogue, that's okay. The reason I don't like dialogues is that they don't work very well on phones, and so it's hard to support both so that the experience is the same on both sides. But if you prefer dialogue, that's fine. Let's see what else. If you click on different topics, here you get different content. So these are the widgets that allow a faculty to create content, right? There in this first assignment, there are 4 types of widgets, and so here's the simplest of widgets, the heading widget, right? The heading widget is just that. It's just to display a heading, right? So this is the preview of what the student will see, okay? But as a faculty, I need to be able to edit the heading. So for instance, I can change the heading text. I can change the size of that heading. Also, I can give the widget a name. Okay. Also, there's a title of what type of widget am I editing right now, and other things such as I can on the fly change the type of the heading of the widget. Right, so as I click on this, the form changes. Right? Well, not for this assignment. When we get to jQuery or React, we'll do that. But nevertheless, we'll have this up and running. Right? We'll have what it looks, what it would look like. Plus adds new widgets. Right? If you want to put this at the top, that's fine. The save button that suggests that the faculty can add any number of widgets, but they're not saved on the database just yet until you click on save. Right? Then it saves the entire list of widgets to the database. Also notice there's a preview, which what it would do is that it would hide all the form content. It would only leave the preview, right? How it would look like from the student's point of view, right? And and this would toggle between the preview and whatnot. What else? So that's what the course editor looks like. And I go through each one of these. Here's another type of widget. Here's the widget list. Oh, I'm sorry. This content here is referred to as the widget list, meaning a list of widgets. Right? So there's going to be lots of widgets, one after another. Also notice here that you have that allows you to reorder the widgets. Ideally, you could just grab it and move it around. That'd be cool, right? You can use jQuery to do that very easily, to reorder it and put it in a different position. Anyway, so here's here's an example of what the widget list looks like. Here's one widget. Here's another widget, one after another. In this case, it's a heading widget followed by a list widget. So there's a drop-down that allows you to select what type of widget it is. X allows you to remove the widget. Also, there's a delete widget button. There's a position buttons, right? These buttons would allow you to move them up and down. There's a save widget list button at the top. There's a preview check button at the top. So presumably, when you click on the preview, it would hide all the form, right? And it would just show the content as it would be seen by the student. Again, that's not for this assignment. We don't have any way to do this dynamically, right? We'll do that in later assignments. Okay. This is just showing you what the requirements are. All the widgets have a widget name attribute. Widget property labels. So some of the widgets, some of these input fields, they should all have a grayed out placeholder giving us a hint of what it is that you want me to type there. Okay? Notice that this one doesn't have a label. It doesn't have a label. So there's a requirement saying that these all should have labels, even if they're not showing there. Right? Make sure that everything has a label. Everything has a placeholder. Ideally, the placeholder would give you an example of what it is that you want me to type there, right? As opposed to something that is like a label, right? It would make no sense to have here username and then username again as a placeholder. You have like username and maybe do John Doe or something. What else? Let's see. Okay, so here are the widgets one at a time. The heading widget. The heading widget has for you to type in the text, the size, and then the widget name, and then a preview at the bottom. The paragraph widget has a text area. Okay, notice that the text area by default has this little resizing icon, right? It has to be at least 2 or 3 rows high. Has widget name and then a preview. Then I have the list widget. The list widget will allow me to enter each line item per line in the text area. And depending on whether I choose ordered list or unordered list, it'll re-render as ordered or unordered. Okay? We have the image widget where you can type the URL of an image, okay? And it will dynamically just render that image. It has a link widget that allows you to create a hyperlink, just a simple hyperlink like over here. You can change the text and the URL that it points to. Okay, that's the first 4 widgets. We'll be adding more widgets as we go. Source control requirements make sure that everything has its own branch, that you've merged into master, that you've deployed. This is on Heroku or AWS. Deliverables. Make sure that you create a repository and also a Heroku or AWS remote server. Follow the following naming convention. It will be webdev, fall 18, section 1. Your first name, last name. This first assignment, we're going to be implementing everything in a Java server. Later on, there will be a server, but in Node. Okay, but we'll get started with Java, and then we'll go on to Node. So please follow this naming convention for the repository and also the Heroku name of your server. Okay? All right, any questions? Yes?
For the image, we have to resize it to a comfortable pixel, like 400 by 400 or something like that.
I'm sorry, say again?
Should we reformat that image into a stick size?
For the image? Well, you can leave it raw for now. What we're going to do at some point is make it responsive so that as you as you resize the image, it'll expand or fit whatever size you give it.